Okay, all right, here we are. Welcome to your 2 p.m. session. 2 p.m. that we're squarely in the afternoon. We've done it. We've made it to the afternoon, and we have a whole day of life here ahead of us. So super excited. Today we're going to focus for 2 p.m. on improving emergency response with innovative geospatial technology via unmanned aircraft systems and next-gen 911. So really exciting stuff, super interesting content coming your way. Again, same deal as what I said this morning. You can hide your non-video participants, or maybe don't. I'll let the speakers decide how you want to navigate that. But for this session, I am going to throw it over to Sandy Dyer from DATAMARK. Sandy.
Hey, thank you, Jake. Welcome, everyone. As Jake mentioned, this is Improving Emergency Response with Innovative Geospatial Technologies. Alicia and I are excited to be participating in NSGIC's virtual conference, and even more so excited to share with you the information that we've brought today. Because we are concerned about some technical difficulties, our video will be on now, but then we're gonna turn it off as we get the session started. A quick introduction of myself for those that don't know me. My name is Sandy Dyer. I am a public safety expert with DATAMARK, and DATAMARK is a public safety team of Michael Baker International. I am not historically a GIS person. I am a public safety person starting 30 years ago as a 911 dispatcher, and have had the benefit of fulfilling many roles in 911 throughout my career. Again, as a dispatcher, as a system administrator, networks and databases, and then most recently with the state of Arizona in supporting their GIS data readiness for next generation 911. I am pleased to have with me Alicia McConnell. She's co-presenting with me today, and I'd like her to go ahead and introduce herself. Alicia.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks, Sandy. So as she mentioned, I am Alicia McConnell. I started my career in Baker in 2011, and I started off as a transportation civil engineer. So I was working on highways, design projects, transitioned into a project manager, and then in 2018, January of 2018, I got the opportunity to oversee the UAS group. We were rapidly growing at that point. I was a pilot with them since 2015. And I took that opportunity, and I'm excited to share a lot of what we've done with you guys today, and hopefully how you can implement some of these UAS services into what you're doing in each state. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video just so we don't have any glitches here. So I'll give you guys a real quick overview of Michael Baker as a company. I know you're all familiar with DATAMARK, but Michael Baker has 17 practices across our company, including GIT, bridge, highway, rail and transit, water, pretty much all the other common services you'd expect from a large consulting engineering firm. The graphic you see on the right shows some of the teams that make up our GIT practice at Michael Baker, including the latest and, might I add, the coolest additions of DATAMARK and UAS. And our new teams are new, relatively speaking. We have been around for several years, but I do tend to like us both the most. So this year is our 80th anniversary, and some notable highlights in this 80-year history includes many geospatial aspects and services that have evolved over the years with the changing technology. So our company started in 1940. And by 1941, we were in the geospatial services since we did conventional survey at that point. That's an actual photo of one of our survey crews. By 1954, we had a fleet of aircraft. That graphic that you see on the screen is actually a brochure for our aircraft and data collection methods. That was from 1954, and we were performing photogrammetry at that point. Then right around 1990, we patented GPS mapping technology. We held that patent for 20 years, actually. Then in 1997, we performed the first commercial aerial LiDAR project by collecting 1,200 square miles of Harris County, Texas. In 2009, we acquired our first mobile LiDAR vehicle. 2014, we bought our first UAS, and then in 2015, we got our first laser crack measurement system, which is just another piece of our mobile pavement management solution. So from all of this, I hope you can see we do have a long history of providing geospatial services to clients all across the country, and we continue to do so today. One of the iconic projects that Michael Baker has featured as part of our 80-year anniversary is Old Ellicott City. So I'll skip ahead here in this video. It's just a quick, the video is long, but we can speed it up a little bit. So we recorded flood elevations and drove this with our mobile LiDAR vehicle and created a 3D model of the city that visually represented the impact of the floodwaters that impacted that city. There is a note in here, kind of a disclaimer, I guess, that states that the visualization is approximate simply because there was significant damage to Main Street, which is the street we're on here. All that infrastructure was damaged due to the flooding. However, this visualization really helped show stakeholders how impactful the floodwaters were to their properties. One of the things that I find really interesting about this vehicle is typically when we do a collection like this and have a 3D model or a point cloud, sometimes those vehicles and people, we get that ghosting, and there's a lot of extraneous data there that we don't necessarily want. But in this case, you can really see it's a good relative measurement tool. So you can see the floodwaters, and they're thigh high on people at this point. They go up almost up to the midway on some of these doors on these vehicles. You can see how they're starting to get deeper and deeper. Those people are neck deep. So this was a really cool representation, one of the neater projects that I was around for and halfway involved with. So pretty cool stuff. So as I mentioned during my introduction, I shared how, with my background, I had anticipated more utilizing UAS for the transportation and engineering involvement, transportation type workflows, and those types of civil engineering applications, and where I could implement UAS in a unique yet effective way. However, right when I got the program, there were so many instances where we were asked by a municipality or a state or a contractor even to respond to an emergency situation, and UAS was actually a really great tool for this situation. So today I want to share with you how maybe you can utilize UAS services as a tool for your own emergency preparedness and response, and hopefully you'll see a few examples of how we've effectively used those in the past. Just a quick history on our UAS program. We started in 2015. As I mentioned, that's when I became a pilot. I was one of 6 that started off. We knocked down to 3 after a little bit and then built back up. So today, company-wide, we have over 40, it's what's called Part 107 pilots, which is the certificate you have to operate a UAS commercially. We have about 31 active pilots because we have a pretty rigorous training program we send them through, just so we have safe operations. Everybody understands the requirements in aerospace and all of that. We have over 25 aircraft, and that includes fixed wing and multi-rotor. I'll show you a few of those here in a sec. And a lot of what we do are inspections, aerial surveying and mapping, like I mentioned, the emergency response side of things, construction management, so progress photos, inspection, doing surface comparison models and volume surface comparisons. And then also, kind of the easy one is the media and marketing side of things. Part of our fleet that you can see on the screen here, we have multiples of each of these different ones listed here, but I wanted to show you sort of what they look like. Just kind of our entry level, we usually do some training, sometimes media and type of marketing type of photos with the top left there. That's a Phantom 4 Pro, or a Phantom, I guess. So that's got a lower resolution camera, but it still does a great job for some of those types of tasks. Our mid-level is the Inspire 2 that's on the right there. It's got a 21 megapixel camera, records 4K video. We've got a zoom lens that can go on it. It's really great for inspections and just getting highly detailed visual data. And then our highest end is the Falcon 8 you see in the bottom of the screen there. It's a 36 megapixel camera, great for surveying, mapping type applications. great for inspections. And just so you kind of have a frame of reference on that one in the bottom, the yellow one you see there is it's a really high quality commercial UAS. The difference between entry level, you can get that for about $2,000. The high end, that system costs $58,000. So just so you kind of have an idea of, what some of these run. For our fixed wing fleet, a few that you see on the screen here, or a couple you see on the screen, we have an Altavian, which was originally slated to do a lot of like DoD type work, and then it was available for the commercial side of things. So it's a great airframe, got about 45-minute flight time. Fixed wing, you typically have a longer range of flight time there, but you don't always have the best predictability of where that can fly. So if you have boundaries that are urban areas and you can't fly over them, usually we go with the multi-rotor, but real open areas, kind of like you see in the picture on the right there, the fixed wing is a great option. Projects we've done all across the nation, you can see they're kind of spattered throughout. We've done a number of different types of projects. It kind of tried to throw them in a couple different buckets there, but you can see the bulleted list. We've done a lot of things, and every day I get surprised about what people ask that we can do, and oftentimes the answer is yeah, we'll try it, because it's we're always looking for new and innovative ways to use our technology and help out clients as best we can. So one example I want to give you guys of one of our I guess best emergency response type of projects was for Nevada DOT. Let me see if I can get this to play for you. And this video is a before and after of some of the flooding. So this was out in Pyramid Lake in northern Nevada. This was January 2017. Floodwaters wiped out a whole bunch of different areas of this road. It was 12.8 miles, and I think there were 7 or 8 washouts. So you see it panning back and forth on the screen. What you're seeing there is the point cloud that we developed off of that surface data that we ended up providing to the client. So we collected this data. We got the call on a Friday that this tremendous damage had happened. We worked up a plan, got the task order on a Friday, went out there and flew Saturday and Sunday, and then put our processing machines to the test and delivered a surface to them by that following Wednesday, so their design teams could have a surface to work off of and start to get that project going and get those repairs made. We were able to pull volumes for them for some of their quick fix earthwork that was happening out there at the time, but UAS was just the perfect tool for this from a safety standpoint, those man at risk hours, and just being able to be versatile and get out there and help out the DOT. So one way that I think we could help the states, and one thing I want to share with you guys today, is how each state can utilize some of these UAS services. Many years ago, and I'll say many being, 5-6 years ago, NASPO and Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, decided that it would be worthwhile, and there was enough interest that states could utilize UAS services through a NASPO contract. So the National Association of State Procurement Officials, they have their cooperative purchasing organization, or ARM, which is the NASPO Value Point. They solicited services for UAS services across the country, and there's a video that will explain this a lot better than I can and more concisely. But essentially, Michael Baker was awarded this along with 12 other contractors, and I think it's a great option for a lot of states in order to quickly solicit these services.
NASPO Value Point is the purchasing cooperative of the National Association of State Procurement Officials. All 50 states, Washington, D.C., and even U.S. territories are members of NASPO Value Point. Our volume and process spurs innovation, competition, and best value. We've been doing this over 20 years now and know what it takes to leverage leadership, expertise, and purchasing power. Simply put, NASPO Value Point can give your organization the purchasing power of up to all 50 states. If you work for a state or local government, school district, or higher education institution, our contracts help your organization obtain the solutions offering the best value. NASPO Value Point offers a great selection of supply and service contracts in one place. You can be assured our contracts are awarded with full competition and transparency. Our contracts protect your interests with favorable terms and conditions developed by public procurement professionals, subject matter experts, and actual users from across the country. You will benefit from the lower administrative costs of processing bids by leveraging the expertise of staffs across state boundaries. NASPO Value Point allows suppliers to avoid the repetitive bid process for each separate entity. Suppliers pass these savings along to the states and their political subdivisions. Instead of several states requesting separate bids for the same goods or services, one state takes the lead for one solicitation procurement, while other states contribute to the effort. This allows organizations to share their resources and more efficiently achieve their business goals. Better still, NASPO Value Point reimburses states for all costs of leading and coordinating efforts. Our goal at NASPO Value Point is to give your organization leveraged buying power to maximize your budgets. Make the purchasing part of your day easier, more cost-effective, and worry-free. Get online now at naspovaluepoint.org.
So hopefully we were all able to hear that very clearly, but as I was mentioning, it is the cooperative purchasing there really makes this a benefit to both the contractor and the state. So the states, it simplifies that state-led procurement process, and NASPO's already vetted contractors. We had to submit our best and lowest price. We were vetted for quality and reliability. We had to have specific insurance requirements, and verify that all of our service providers, anybody providing that UAS service or flights, had the appropriate certifications and coverages and things like that. And then from our side, from the contracting side of it, it's definitely a benefit because, as they mentioned, instead of going after all of these services in each of these states, spending valuable time pulling together proposals and properly displaying what resources we have to provide to that state, if that's already been done, you can look at our proposal, you can see everything that we have, and hopefully we can provide those services to you in a much easier way, kind of cutting the red tape. The scope of services listed in this UAS, NASPO UAS contract were UAS collections only, no professional services as part of it, and to apply or to be considered, a contractor had to bid on at least one service category, and you can see those service categories listed on the bottom of the screen. Emergency support with those 3 response times. So I'll show you a map here coming up, but we were showing, what we wanted to show is with the location of all of our pilots across the nation, and we ended up partnering with a number of different firms, we could respond to emergencies in those areas within 4 hours, another set within 24, and another within 72. So there were a couple different requirements for responding to emergencies. There's also law enforcement support, aerial inspection and mapping, doing those collections, agriculture and gaming. So whether it's wildlife or something for maybe the DNR where they're looking at vegetative health, and then obviously the media and marketing aspect of it. So these were the zones that they had pulled out, and a contractor would have to go after either a specific state in that zone or the entire zone. We went after all of the zones. We ended up coming up with full coverage. I think there were 2 or 3 other contractors that were actually awarded all the other zones as well. So this contract actually goes for 6 years. It started at the beginning of this year. It was quite a long process in order to get it in place, but each contractor is allowed 2 base years, and then we can renew for up to 4 years after those 2 base years. So a good handle on this project, or being part of this project, you've got services for several years there. Then one aspect of this is that we have a master agreement with NASPO, and then each state has to sign what's called a participating addendum. So right now we're in the process of negotiating those participating addendums, or just a contract with that particular state, signing on with them in order to be able to provide these UAS services to that state. So if this is something you are interested in, a lot of states need a little backup data or a little boost. The state procurement officer needs to understand that there is a need for these services, that these services would be utilized if the contract was in place. So to go ahead and sign us up. And it's not just us, as I mentioned before, there are multiple different contractors that were awarded different zones. So let's say in your state, there may be 3 available contractors to get signed on with that state. Some states may have 12. It all just depends where you are and what kind of pilot coverage they have out there, and what contractors went after that zone, or what vendors went after that particular zone or state. So again, it's accessible to all the public entities within that state. And yeah, the rest of it, I mean, NASPO collects 0.25% on all that revenue, but you know, usually that's all accounted for there. Our particular proposal, we were fortunate enough to have pilots in each of the major zones that we went after. So those zone leads took charge, and we were able to pull in quite a few team members. So we have just under 100 partner companies, and that's what got us our nationwide pilot coverage, because you know, at this point we only have 31 pilots. That's not near enough. And fortunately, we had a lot of great partner companies step up and be able to fill out that team for us. So we had 471 pilots listed in the proposal, and that does not include one of our independent contractor pilot companies that they can provide some of our, you know, quite a few of our services, and with guidance, some of the more advanced services, but that puts us in the 40,000 range of number of pilots available to us through this contract and through our partnerships. We had 58 unique platform types, some of which you can see on the screen there. So fixed wing, some pretty fancy multi-rotors there, some gas-powered helicopters, you know, so many different types of airframes to really cover all data collection needs. This is the map that I was discussing earlier with emergency response times. You can see the graduated shading with when we could get to certain locations based on time and location of those pilots and some of our lead office locations. This does not include our big database of pilots with our independent contractors, but this is the 471 pilots. And our pricing approach, this is you know, we had to be really competitive with that pricing. So we created standard pricing for every zone, simply because it does vary across zones. And generally speaking, we had labor rates for pilots, visual observers, and other support personnel. And then we did standard holiday weekend rates, and then tiered pricing for our aircraft. As I mentioned before, on that first, or one of those first slides that I showed you, there's a big difference in types of aircraft. You can buy a Phantom at Best Buy, but you definitely cannot buy that Falcon 8, that yellow one, at any store. Just walk in and buy it. That's really a commercial use. So UAS can cost anywhere from $50 to $350,000. So depending on what you're collecting and the sensors and all of that, we really had to tier our pricing and break that out specifically. So whenever somebody requested services, we were applying the right airframe, the right sensor, and then could apply that cost appropriately. Travel expenses are not included in that, since that will vary. And then we are allowed to adjust our pricing if states charge fees associated with online procurement, things like that. Yeah, so we can handle those costs as part of our negotiations with the client. And just a real quick overview of the participating addendum process. If you go online, there's a link at the bottom of the screen here. I doubt you can click it, but maybe if you want to take a screenshot, or just note that if you type in NASPO, navigate to NASPO Value Point and search for the UAS services, you'll be able to find all of the contractors listed that provide services and what states they're allowed to provide those services in. There's a blank or a template for a participating addendum. That's how we start our negotiations with the states, and they can change some of the terms and conditions and things like that. And we just come to a mutual agreement and then sign that participating addendum, and then are able to start performing services for that state. So that's just what this flow chart is sharing with you. Like I said, that NASPOValuePoint.org, Unmanned Aerial Vehicle Drone Services is where you go to find all of that. And again, if anybody has any questions, I know we're doing question and answer, but since this is all virtual, if you guys want to take a screenshot, you know, give me a call, shoot me an email, anything like that. If you have any questions just on even how this operates, how this works, and kind of how to get that going in your state, I am happy to talk about it and happy to help in any way. And with that, I will hand this back to Sandy for her portion.
Thank you. You know, folks, I know normally when we're talking about emergency preparedness and response, generally the conversation is, I don't know, it focuses on a different aspect. But the reality is, for emergency preparedness and response, it's actually relying on the efforts we've put in place during normal times, like assuring that the right mechanisms we need to support us during the emergency are already in place, like the NASPO contract Alicia shared with us. It's not, if you will, the sexy part of emergency preparedness and response, but it is what we need in order to make sure that when that emergency happens, we have the right resources in place. Now, coming from a career of ensuring accessibility to 911 emergency services, my focus is always on the resiliency, the reliability, and frankly, the accessibility of solutions that we use. And while historically the support of these industries have fallen outside of the GIS venue, as you know, with Next Generation 911, emergency preparedness and response needs to include GIS professionals and the technologies that we'll be asking you to support when we do these life-saving responses. So the pandemic, the recent fires and the floods have challenged our ability to work on site and have created for our new normal. I actually hate that term, but that's the reality of it all. These events have taught us that becoming a remote work environment has its challenges, especially when you consider the need to be able to connect to essential services to perform specialized work such as GIS. In 911, where the goal is to be fully operational always, innovative approaches that support our ability to remain fully functional are beginning to surface like never before. So terms like interoperability, reliability, redundancy, availability, once keywords used exclusively by a few industries, are now becoming more commonplace among the everyday employee who's found themselves in a position of having to provide services outside of the brick and mortar workplace. In addition, we've also been tested and learned that continuity of operations is not only valuable but necessary. Knowing what you need to do during an emergency and having a plan in place to support your emergency are actually two different things. Learning from the events of 2020, we're most likely going to find that we need to take a step back, consider whether we've put the right solutions in place, have the proper agreements, funding, and procurement vehicles to support the end goal of continued operations in a remote environment. And it's no different for public safety NG911 GIS. NG911 as an overall concept is seeking a more interoperable, reliable, and available means of supporting public safety response, whether it's the network, the call handling solutions, or the GIS. We're seeing more and more solutions that can go with the dispatcher versus figuring out how to keep emergency response available at the dispatch center. And that includes the ability to do things like on-the-fly dynamic routing with our GIS. Now, I would like to share with you a case study in this scenario. Now, DATAMARK VEP as a SaaS solution, a software as a service, was actually built with this understanding of what would be expected of us moving forward. Unfortunately, the events of 2020 have happened, but it was a really great test of the way that we built the solution. And I'd like to share with you experiences of one of our partners who's Manatee County, Florida. Now, just a little background on Manatee. It's located just south of Tampa Bay in Florida's Gulf Coast. And according to them, it offers sunshine, tranquil Gulf breezes, and bright blue skies. Gallup News recently reported this area is the 6th highest in the country for overall sense of well-being. And National Geographic Explorer and best-selling author Dan Buettner included this region as one of its top happiest communities in the U.S. A recent study identified Manatee County as the 10th fastest growing metro in the area. And that growth was mostly attributed to new and relocating due to employers, baby boomer retirees, and just others, you know, that want to be in that kind of lifestyle. They did find that a lot of folks were moving from northern states who were just wanting the more sunny skies. Now, this wave of incoming residents is driving intense land development as the county itself is converting from rural agricultural to mixed-use communities. And a critical first step in is the assignment of the new street addresses for both residential and commercial projects that are being permitted and approved. Now, in 2018, Manatee County's Building and Development Services recognized a need that their existing workflows for street address assignment and management needed improvement. They had over 20 different databases that supported the provisioning of government services that actually contained street addresses that were not standardized and made it difficult to correctly identify a given parcel of land. The workflows for the street address assignment were dependent on paper forms and maps and manual tools and very little automation. And folks, this is representative of most communities, and you know this. Subdivisions were often modified drastically as they moved through the permitting process and required revision of proposed street addressing several times, and the building and development staff were stretched to keep up. At the same time, the county's public safety department began to consider the street addressing requirements for successful implementation of 911, and more specifically, NG 911. In recognition of all these factors, they did issue an RFP for the implementation of an enterprise address management solution in Manatee. Now, in 2019, DATAMARK was selected as their consultant to tackle the problems that they were running into. The primary goal of the project was to implement DATAMARK BEP as the software solution. They wanted the support to modernize their enterprise address management system, and they wanted it in place by early 2020. So DATAMARK's BEP solution and services were put in place. We started to implement in 2019. The goal was to enable multiple departments and GIS providers across the county to contribute to the GIS data system of record, perform ongoing validations of the county GIS data, to be able to edit that data, and provision high quality address data to other business systems, including the NG 911 system. So as part of the scope, we performed a data readiness assessment, did an address comparison and evaluation of the collection of all the authoritative street addresses that they had. We deployed our BEP solution to support the assignment, management, and maintenance of these addresses from the enterprise perspective. We participated in consultation with various county departments to identify what workflows they wanted to have in place and to streamline the addressing. And then, of course, you know, everything that you do always comes with training in order to support that change management with county staff and the multiple departments that were going to contribute to this enterprise solution. So in 2020, we put BEP into production, full production, and this county staff did their full cutover and is fully relying on BEP as their solution. And they instantly started to realize several benefits from putting it in place. Like I mentioned, the enterprise address management, the creation of a single source of authoritative addresses for across the county, the ability to feed authoritative addresses to other mission critical business systems, the streamlined and modernized workflows, enabled greater staff efficiencies. It facilitated multi-departmental editing of address data, reducing the duplication of efforts. And then it also offered unlimited and continuous validations of these address edits and updates to ensure not only that they were highly accurate and available, but that they met the NENA standards and it poised them for NG 911. So in March 2020, much like the rest of the nation, the county declared a local state of emergency due to the global pandemic. And Manatee County shifted many of their employees to work from home and closed the offices. Because the SaaS architecture supports the work from anywhere, the GIS from anywhere concept, the building and development department staff and staff from other departments that were involved in addressing efforts actually experienced no interruption of their services. Despite the COVID situation, land development in Manatee County continues at a brisk pace, and there is increased interest in real estate from folks looking to migrate to Manatee County from other parts of the country. So DATAMARK and Manatee have entered into a true partnership, and many of the needs and requirements in Manatee County have led to future enhancements in VEP. And we're super proud that we can support them during this difficult time. This really was, it's been a bad year in 2020, but I really am impressed that we were able to continue to support Manatee County, even remotely and seamlessly. Now, I do want to, I just real quick, it's been a while, probably about a year and a half or so since we've shared with you anything going on with our solution. So I'm just going to take a few minutes of your time. Now, there is a difference between a SaaS solution and on-prem and web-based solutions. And a SaaS solution itself is a completely cloud-native web-based application architecture that has the flexibility and scalability to expand and contract as needed. It does fully support continuity of operations and disaster recovery, which is, again, something that's been challenged in 2020 for sure. We pride ourselves on the fact that it's SaaS. You know, the hardware and software licensing is not a part of it. It's versionless. And because it's subscription-based, like I said, it's scalable. It's scalable, it has no CapEx requirements, and the next slide is actually sold on subscription levels. So we have various subscription levels. We have just the validate and provision one, which allows you to do iterative validations of your GIS data and then provision that data, be the ability to export it to solutions. We also have our validate, edit, and provision, which allows you to do everything validate and provision, but also has now an editing capability to it. So for Manatee County, that's the editing platform that those multiple departments are using for their authoritative data set. And then since we've talked last, we actually have an aggregation. So aggregate, validate, and provision. And I'm super excited actually about the aggregator aspect because what we have seen is that many 911 champions have begun to recognize what I've always known, and that's the value in supporting next generation 911 with locally authoritative data and aggregating that to a statewide data set. Early on in Arizona, that was our goal. We knew all the knowledge about GIS was at a local level, and we needed to keep that at a local level, and we wanted to move it up. So, and we did some early adopter efforts to get that done. Our aggregator solution allows us to do it. It consolidates your GIS data from multiple sources into a single database. It performs cross-jurisdictional validations on the aggregated data set to identify anomalies in the data. And then regional GIS administrators supporting the database can use aggregator to perform, you know, multiple functions like input the local GIS data from an aggregated database, perform the validations on boundary, address point, and road centerline data, identify the anomalies in the data, including the gaps and overlaps, and then export that aggregated data set into not only the NENA NG91 GIS schema, but other types of schemas. Now, some other enhancements that are either have happened or future enhancements that I want to share with you. One is our multi-jurisdictional functionality. So local users, as the slide indicates, can collaborate with neighboring jurisdictions and run those cross-jurisdictional validations. Because when you're going to take that locally authoritative data and put it in this statewide data set, you then have to be able to check it on a statewide level, right? We want to make sure that we have all those validations that you would normally run on the local data is now on a, obviously done with the statewide data set. If you're going to utilize that statewide data set for NG 911 or frankly any GIS application, whether it's going to be local addressing systems or anything else that you may use it for. It's the whole point of having a central authoritative data set. It's also going to allow the local user to remediate the data, like I said, aggregate it. It does trigger validations on the local data and across the borders, and then it's going to let you maintain your data with continuous updates and the high confidence. And I know that seems like a no-brainer, folks, but when public safety is relying on your data, we really need to make sure that we can assure not only our legislatures and our constituents, but the citizens as a whole, that our data is actually the highest level that we can use for 911. And then lastly, I'll wrap it up by sharing that we do have some future enhancements that are on our roadmap. It's going to be some additional multi-jurisdictional collaboration, some more robust reporting capabilities, some additional validations in concert with what we're doing today. I'm really excited about the address maintenance tool with auto address assignment, the road ranges, and the additional editing enhancements. Our observation tool, so in the edit solution, say you have you want to connect your 911 center to your overall GIS management. You have this observation tool that allows them to communicate directly and say, hey, there's a problem with the GIS. This is what we found in using it. Can I get someone to check it out? And then the upload and validation workflow improvements as a whole. So we work with every single customer to understand what they need the solution to do. Manatee County is a really great example. And then we take those recommendations and we put it in the solution. And because it's a SaaS-based solution, when an enhancement happens, everyone receives the enhancement. It's not whether or not you're at a certain license level or service level. It's a ubiquitous platform. Anyhow, so I really was really excited that Alicia decided to join me today. I think the information on the NASPO contract was super informational. Like I said, it's not the sexy side of emergency preparedness and response, but it is the necessary side. And I think we're finding that more and more, and this year has tested us for sure. So Alicia, unless you have anything else, I mean, we can facilitate questions or?
Yeah, however we want to do it.
I don't know if there are any questions. I think there's mostly comments going in the chat. So there was one question. Can you share the UAS collection options slide again? And then Bridget also shared out the slide deck too.
Okay, and which slide was it? I was kind of scanning through the chat, but I didn't catch that one. Which one did they want to see?
The UAS collection option slide.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Buzz right through these. Oops, was it this one?
I'm not sure.
With the different types of collections. So one thing I will share there is they tried to do some overarching umbrella names for these. As long as it's a UAS service, if we are flying to collect something for you, it counts. It'll usually fall into one of these buckets in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I wouldn't get too hung up on the names of or the labels that they apply to these, but yes, we can. If anybody has any questions, obviously reach out. I can definitely help.
Okay, and then
It looks like Chris
Um,
Diller has his hand up. If you want to throw to Chris.
Yeah, hi. I just want to make a comment. So in 2008, Wisconsin had some very large floods. We had a lake breached over Highway A and into the Wisconsin River and drained the entire lake. We utilized the federal contract, Gypsy contract, to do a task order to collect LiDAR over the area to do all the things that you were talking about with the UAS, which is a surface, a surface model along with the volume calculations. The Wisconsin DOT was planning on going out and shooting all of that to get the 1 foot contours that they needed for reconstruction planning. And that was going to take them well over 2 weeks to shoot all of that by hand. So the efficiency in which LiDAR can provide the calculations that is needed very, very quickly is paramount. And so I'm very excited about this particular contract. I've already passed the information on to our emergency management folks who probably are not aware of this, and also our DNR and DOT who are responsible for the highways, but also our dams, which we have quite a few of them. So that value proposition of speed versus time is something that everyone will have to weigh. But given the fact that you are connecting the lifeline of a highway, whether it's commerce or tourism or whatever that might be, and trying to get that highway back up and operational is critical. And expediting that and getting that completed 2 weeks earlier is just that much more important for government to get done. So thank you for the presentation. I very much appreciated it.
Thank you for the comment. That's yeah, that's very true. One of the later examples I have, or one of the more recent examples, was that earthquake up in Alaska. They have those critical paths for infrastructure, and they had some bridges that they thought were damaged. Well, you've got people on the roads. Can they cross those? Some of that more immediate stuff. And then as you start to expand those roadways that you need to open and some of that critical infrastructure that you need to check, you can really utilize a lot of our services in order to help with at least the visual portion of that. We had to pair it with an inspector, but getting some of that imagery, you can even live feed it back to somebody in a DOT office or some emergency response type of office and get that data very quickly. So yes, I agree. They are very useful tools when applied correctly.
Cool. It looks like Brian has a question about for Sandy about the DATAMARK SaaS solution. Do you want me to read that one out loud?
No, I can see it, Darren.
Okay,
Thank you
cool.
so much. So Brian, yes, I do think it's going to work in rural areas, especially because a lot of ways that it's actually pulling the information from your data itself. So as long as the information is contained in your data, which I know it does for you because you do high quality work, it's going to work in rural areas. You and I can talk offline because I'd rather tackle it that way for you, to be able to explain to you how the solution is going to work for that auto addressing. Because, yeah, thank you. Because I'm thinking about your county specifically, and I want to, and obviously getting hung up when I answer that. I'm sorry, sir.
Any other questions for Sandy or Alicia? Just raise your hand in the participant list. Okay, well, hearing none. Thank you, Sandy and Alicia. Really amazing presentation. Thanks for doing it.